Next slide, Andrea. So these are the areas we plan to cover this morning. We'll talk a little bit about evaluation and the results from last year, fiscal year. Administrative management of the project, fiscal management of the project, and operational management. Now, operational management may get pushed from today to another date because I'm not sure if Jim's going to be able to join us this morning. So if he's able to pop in and do his part, we will get to that. Otherwise, we'll push it back and do it later in the fall. Next slide, please. So these are your grant managers. Some of you know, and some of you may not know that Wendy Bach is retiring. So she is out of the office. She will be officially retired in December. So we're going to miss her a lot. She's been a real key part of our team, and I haven't gotten word yet that I have a green light to replace her position at this point, but I'm sure that will happen, and we'll have a new grant manager train up. But the assignments are as shown, and you'll be getting a copy of this presentation after the webinar. Excuse me for hacking, but I had COVID a couple weeks ago. So I'm still recovering, and my voice is actually a lot better than it was last week. So anyway, next slide, please. This is our timeline for RLC38. Grant term began July 1st, so you can start billing us from July 1st. And the cycle will end on June 30th, 2025, 2 years out. Grant agreement, where hopefully soon, as I said, advances were approved by the Department of Finance. Everybody did a stellar job on the advance request. Thank you all for that. In order to get your RLC38 advance, remember you must have your 37 advance fully reconciled and 36 flow. Must have final invoice report have to approve before we get flow. You also have to be current on all CalRecycle debt, including audit. If you have an audit finding, all that has to be paid. So covered that. You may request RLC 38 reimbursement when you close 36. Accounting won't process a 38 invoice until 36 is closed in GMS. And you need a grant agreement executed. So, and just so you know, after you execute your grant agreement, those get sent over to the state controller's office, and they enter the grant into Fiscal, which is our accounting system. They demand 2 weeks to get that job done. So if you turned in an invoice for 38, we are not even able to send it to SDO for 2 weeks after the grant agreement goes over there. So there's all these bureaucratic process. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about evaluation.
Hold on one second.
So thank you all for submitting your data to us. We collect this and compare it to previous years. And as you can see, this is beverage container collection, and it's comparing 2 years, 21-22 and 22-23. And the good news is beverage container collection rose 18% in fiscal year 22-23. And so about 2,100 tons of beverage container material were collected compared to 1,800 tons previous fiscal year.
Eric,
Yes.
people are having a hard time hearing you. Is there something you can do with your mic?
I don't know. Maybe I can talk louder. Is this better? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's just breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay. I don't know what to do about that. Maybe if I turn off my
Video?
improve my connection. Okay, next slide, please.
Much better.
Okay. Okay, on waste tires, again, this was a positive upward trend in 22-23. The collection rose by 20% with 116,781 tires collected last fiscal year. And that is the highest single year tire collection by the Corps since we diversified funding in 2014. So congratulations on your hard work on tires. It's probably a little bit of a mixed message because it's not a great thing that there's more tires to collect out there that are illegally dumped, but we're very proud of the work that you do cleaning up the land out there and getting these tires out of the environment. Next slide, please. E-waste. E-waste was not as positive. Unfortunately, e-waste collection volume fell pretty significantly in 22-23. And again, that could be a mixed thing. It could be that you've kind of gotten all the low-hanging fruit in your area, all the big piles of e-waste that may have been sitting like with a school district or something for years, and you got them collected, but it dropped 35% from the previous fiscal year. But you still collected about 1,600 tons of e-waste material and transferred that to either collectors or recyclers. So still a lot of work. Next slide, please. CCC signage review. This fell just slightly. Still almost hit 100% on your reviews, on your sign reviews last year. So good work. We had one core that was slightly less than 100%, but really it's still above 99%. So as a program, just awesome performance. So thank you for that. And you're really doing a service to the state because CalRecycle counties really don't have enough staffing to get out there, solve these CCCs and make sure there's signage so that people know where to recycle the used oil. So it's a great service that Corps members are doing. Next slide, please. So your reporting requirements, they're not changing. Still required to do quarterly progress reports. We have a template that, again, is not changing for this year. And you'll be uploading progress reports into GMS in the reports tab. And those are due 30 days after the end of each fiscal quarter. And then you'll also be uploading the Certified Collection Center signage review spreadsheet in GMS. And remember to do that whether or not you did any reviews in that quarter. Jim still, this way Jim doesn't have to reach out to you and ask you for that form. That tells him that you just didn't put that on your schedule for that quarter. So even if it's blank, just upload it with your quarterly progress reports. Your end of cycle report is due after all funds are expended in the cycle or at the end of the grant term. So if you finish RLC37 in October, then you have 60 days from then to submit your final report. So if you wait until the end of the cycle, then you have until August of 2025. Withheld funds are released automatically when the end of cycle report is approved. And so you don't need to request that to happen. You don't have to submit a payment request form or anything like that. CalRecycle report templates must be used and are available in GMS under the resource and the summary tab. Next slide, please. So a couple reminders. One is on the e-waste collection, be sure to mark whether you're using e-waste data with a C or estimated weight volume data with E. So that just tells us whether you're using hard data from CWIS or if you're just using estimates. And then core member count, remember to put the grand total in the far right column. So you'll put in all core members that you've got enrolled as core members, and then you'll total that for us in the last column. Okay. And now I'm going to hand it back to Renee, and you're going to hear about administration.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to do my video for just a second, just to introduce myself, and then I'm going to turn it off too, to make sure that everyone can hear me and my internet's good and all that stuff. So first of all, thanks for coming. For those who don't know me, I'm Renee Podris. I'm the lead grant manager for this grant alongside Jim Madden, who is the lead on the technical parts of the grant. And first, I will be going over administration and financial sections. Oh, also, Jim did message us and told us that he is really sick and he won't be here to do his part of the presentation, which is fine. We'll just have his part done. I'll send you out another meeting request and we'll do his separately. It could be good that that's happening. That way everybody can ask technical questions and it will be a little bit more of an open forum than this opening webinar. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay. Recently, your Corps has not signed a grant agreement yet. As Derek mentioned, we don't have them yet, but I did get an email today that hopefully they will start being routed in the next couple days. So fingers crossed. When signing the grant agreement, each Corps is agreeing to everything that is in the grant agreement cover sheet, the terms and conditions, procedures and requirements, and your application. You are also agreeing to the approved budget and the grant project summary. These documents provide details on the grant award and how it will be expended. The terms and conditions and procedures and requirements further detail what is required to stay in compliance. Okay. You are required to obtain certificates of insurance and submit them to your grant manager. There are 3 different types of insurance policies. For the commercial general liability, it needs to be $1 million. For the automobile liability, it needs to be $1 million, and workers' compensation insurance, which is in accordance with the statutory requirement of the state of California. A Corps that self-insures must provide the certificate of consent to self-insure, and please send insurance certificates to your grant manager by email. An external annual audit is required and is due by April 30th for each cycle, unless you have prior approval to extend this timeline. Just let us know if you're not able to do that timeline. We understand that some of them are based on different schedules. When you send your external audit to your grant manager, please note who specifically did the audit within the audit company. Every 6 years at minimum, a new auditor, not company, needs to perform your audit. If you want to change auditors within the same company, that is okay. However, if there is only one auditor within a company, then you need to employ a different company at the 6-year mark. We track the name of the auditor on your reports, so be certain the lead auditor is identified. The name of the company alone is not sufficient. So here is an audit letter sample. The audit letter is a requirement as part of the audit report. The letter must be signed by the auditor, including the name of the auditor that conducted the audit in addition to the name of the auditing firm. So we've gotten a few audit letters back, and it is only, that's why I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit here. We've gotten it back where there's not the actual person doing the audit or people doing the audit. It's just the firm. We actually need to know who is the actual person or people doing the audit so that when the 6-year time comes up, if there's still the same people doing the audit, then we need to switch within the company. And if those people are the only ones in the company, then we have to switch companies. Next slide, yeah. Now let's talk about CalRecycle's audit process. Audits are completed by CalRecycle for a couple of cores randomly each year. First, the auditors will send an engagement letter to grantees. Then they will perform an on-site audit. During an audit, auditors look at cycles from the past. So organized records retention is imperative in order for CalRecycle auditors not to have findings. To ensure the auditors have everything they need, keep all financial records for at least 3 years after the cycle has ended, which is a requirement. Everybody needs to. This includes original receipts, personnel records showing staff and core member timesheets by material fund, in addition to the items you send to us for reimbursement. When the on-site audit is complete, there is an exit meeting. During this time, the auditor will provide an overview of the audit results and then issue a draft audit report. It is very important for you to know that when CalRecycle auditors provide the draft audit report, that this is the time to make your best, most complete argument against any findings you think are incorrect. You have 30 days to provide additional information to contest any findings. It is up to the grantee to provide all relevant information for consideration to the CalRecycle auditor within 30 days. Finally, the auditor issues the final audit report. This means the audit findings are final and the audit is closed. I again remind you that no additional information will be accepted by CalRecycle beyond the 30-day timeline following the issuance of the draft report. All right. Please keep your contacts in GMS up to date. If there are any changes, sign into GMS and make the necessary changes. Remember, anyone with access to the grant application in GMS can make changes. You cannot make changes to the signature, authority, or designee, though. To update those, contact your grant manager. If you move your headquarters where your checks are mailed, you must complete a new payee data record, as seen here. Okay, let's move on to fiscal and compliance. Let's see. Well, compliance won't do today, huh? So next, I will go over fiscal aspects of the grant cycle as listed on this slide. The total award amount for RLC38 is $27,891,970, breaking down to $8 million for e-waste, $2 million for oil, $12,891,970 for beverage containers, and $5 million for tires. It is our job as grant managers to ensure that the funds are expended according to the grant agreement. Let's go over what fiscal compliance is. Fiscal compliance is the organizing and administering of government money following guidelines and regulations. This includes the grant project summary and the budget workbook. Fiscal compliance is also evaluated through quarterly progress reports and end of cycle reports. Next slide, please. Okay, advances. So our advances have been, I think Derek mentioned this, but our advances have been approved by Department of Finance. So those are ready to go, but we just need those grant agreements. Okay, you may request your advance payment when all of the following conditions are met. You are notified by CalRecycle that the advance package has been approved by the Department of Finance, which I just did. Your RLC37 advance is fully reconciled. See advance payment guidelines for details. Any outstanding debts or audit findings are repaid to CalRecycle. Note that this is not limited to the local conservation corps grant. This can be related to any CalRecycle grant that your corps is awarded. An advance acknowledgement letter was just sent out to the grantees who requested an advance. It states that grantees acknowledge that the advance must be repaid before any further advance payments can be made, and that the advance will be repaid proportionately on each invoice. Once the grant agreement is executed and you meet the requirements for an advance, please send your grant manager your payment request form 87 with the total amount of the advance along with your budget workbook and your signed advance acknowledgement form. You can pay back the previous cycle's remaining advance as a lump sum by submitting the advance and repayment form and payment to CalRecycle. Make sure to scan a copy of both the form and the payment and send it to your grant manager. We send those documents to accounting so they are prepared to receive the payment. Once you enter your advance into the invoice tab as an invoice, the budget workbook will calculate the amounts of repayment for each invoice that follows. As mentioned before, these amounts are proportionate to the invoice amount. However, you must enter in the amount in actual advance repayment box. So we've changed our budget workbook quite a bit. Since Wendy isn't here, we had to simplify it a lot so that we could manage it because she's amazing. And yeah, so we'll go over that, but I also have another training tomorrow for all that I sent the finance people an invite to. So let me know if you want to email me and let me know if you want to come to that if you weren't invited. Okay, moving on. Also note, if for some reason you need to go back and change a prior amount on your budget workbook from an invoice that has already been paid, you will need to correct your workbook to reflect the change, as this affects the advance calculation amount. All right. The new area to enter advances is on the invoice tab in the invoice, as seen below. When you enter in your advance in the white boxes, make sure that you indicate a yes in the box in C2, as seen to the right, the little small box you see there. If you have no advance, this does not pertain to you, except that you need to put no in the box in the right. Okay, I'm now going to highlight some of the information for payment requests invoices. This does not replace reading the information about payment requests and the procedures and requirements and the invoicing guide, where it goes more into depth and provides a wide variety of information. The RLC38 grant term is July 1 through July 30th, 2025. Costs incurred before or after the grant term are ineligible to be reimbursed with RLC38 funds. Payment requests should be submitted to CalRecycle every 30 days. However, we will accept payment requests with more than 30 days of expenditures. 10% of the approved amount is withheld on each payment request for the withhold. If you have an advance, the repayment will be deducted on each invoice. Before it was automatic, now it still calculates it automatically, but you actually have to enter in your repayment amount. Quarter reports, final reports, and reports of any kind must be current or payment requests may be held. So make sure you're turning in all your reports on time, please. Recently, we did an analysis of disallowed costs on invoices on cycles 34, 35, and 36. We found that the longer the time period between invoices, the more disallowed costs and errors in the invoice occurred. In other words, the more months you combine into a single invoice, the more mistakes are likely. Please send your grant manager an invoice monthly to avoid costly errors. Okay, so this is the invoicing guide. The invoicing guide will go out with your grant agreement. It will help you navigate through the invoicing process. The first page includes the title of contents as seen here. Please refer to the guide when completing invoices. Please use your invoicing guide to assemble your payment package. You are sent an updated one with every cycle with your grant agreement. This diagram shows all invoice components. Now we will go over each one. First, as you can see here, this is the payment request form 87 and what it looks like. Page 1 is what the grantee fills out and signs. I also listed the items on page 1 above, or on this slide. Page 2 is completed by the grant manager and signed by both the grant manager and the supervisor. Page 3 includes instructions on every line item of the payment request. Here's an example of the payment request form, Form 87. Oh, I see. In items 8 through 13, the grantee name, number, and address must match what is on your grant agreement when you enter information about where payments are to be sent. In box 5, remember that the expenditure period should cover all costs for purchases within your invoice. We have been getting some payment requests that indicate a date that is outside of the provided expenditure period indicated in box 5. So on all the receipts in the invoice, they need to be within that expenditure period. So just double check. I guess we've been getting some that are outside of the expenditure period, which all you really have to do is just extend your expenditure period. Did I say box 7 is the total amount requested, the gross amount requested before advance repayment if applicable, and withhold amounts are deducted. Your payment request number, item 4, must be consecutive. In other words, if you submitted 3 prior invoices, this would be invoice 4, your total requested in GMS. And the authorized signatory or designee must sign your invoice, which is item 14, before you send it. Okay, next is the application budget tab. So this is new. It's very similar to what we had before, but it is new. So I wanted to show it on a slide. You will need to fill this out with your application budget. Since we did change the budget workbook to something completely new, I will be sending out the new budget workbook, and you will have to fill out your application portion again on this, but it's not too bad because we're only doing totals for most of it, except for personnel, where we still indicate that we want staff wages, core member wages, taxes and benefits, workers' comp. That's it. Okay, so Wendy has helped us create this new workbook. While trying to keep simplicity in mind, Wendy has created a workbook that is very functional and aesthetically pleasing and simplified. The materials now go from left to right. As you can see here, this is a change from RLC37 where the materials were arranged vertically. There are also only 2 tabs, the application budget and the invoice tab. And you can always keep your budget in mind with the section on the right that keeps your budget in view as you put in your invoices. Budget modifications are tracked in the budget workbook. Remember that you need written pre-approval from your grant manager for budget modifications only. A budget modification is whenever you are making more than 5,000, moving more than 5,000 between line items, creating a new line item, or deleting a line item. Or if you are making a change to the grant project summary objectives that require a budget modification. Material fund balances awarded cannot be changed. You cannot move money between material funds. All money must stay in the material fund it was allocated to. Next, here's an example of a general ledger that has everything organized in a way that helps the grant manager find everything they need to review an invoice. You do not necessarily need to organize it exactly like this, but there are some key elements that need to be in every general ledger when it is submitted in a payment request. So first, headings for each line item. So number 1 on the left, there's headings for each line item. And then number 2 on the right, we need backup for all charges greater than 1,000 or a combination of charges by the same vendor greater than 1,000. These charges need to be labeled as you see here with the highlighted numbers on the right. The backup needs to match the corresponding label on the general ledger so it is clear for grant managers which backup applies to which charge on the ledger. And then number 3, descriptions are need to be included for all items on the ledger so grant managers can review whether each purchase is eligible under the grant agreement. Okay, you must have a proof of purchase and a proof of payment for all purchases over $1,000 or a combination of purchases that equal 1,000 from the same vendor. Please see the list of approved proof of purchase and payment documentation on this slide. This list is also located on your invoice guide and in the procedures and requirements. In the past, we have asked for extensive personnel records. However, we have found that a clear personnel summary that includes the staff and core member names and hours by material fund is adequate. All travel backup, whether $5 or $2,000, needs to be submitted. Although also whether the travel is direct costs or indirect costs, you need to provide the backup. You do not need you do not need any backup for indirect costs if you have a currently approved federal indirect cost rate. Sorry. If you are using your own cost allocation plan, we do not need backup except for travel, but we do need a ledger. Okay. Travel needs to be documented and has its own requirements for documentation. For a full list of all requirements, please see the CalHR travel reimbursement webpage at the link provided under the state mileage rate on this slide. You can also reach out to your grant manager for help with travel documentation. So travel, we didn't travel for a while, and at least for my grants, we don't travel as much as we used to. So it gets confusing sometimes when you go back to travel and you forget that there's so many requirements. So make sure you're checking out that CalHR website before submitting your travel. Okay, on the right, there's an example of a completed travel claim. These need to be included every time you claim any sort of travel. I won't go through the whole claim, but you'll get the slides later, so you'll be able to get a closer look then. Breakfast was not charged the first day and dinner was not charged the second. That is because the trip started after 6 a.m. and ended before 7 p.m. There are many specific rules to travel, just like the one I provided. So it is imperative that you use the travel claim form and refer to CalHR when completing your documentation for reimbursement. Okay, some general information concerning payment requests. The state has 45 days to process the payment request if there are no errors. Grant managers review invoices that are uploaded into GMS within 48 hours. Then Derek is the second reviewer, then accounting, and lastly, the state controller's office. Things that can slow your invoices down. Multiple invoices submitted at once, time spent reviewing, corrections in earlier invoices causing corrections in later ones, errors, omissions, clarifications, and back and forth. Payment requests are uploaded into GMS by the grantee. Grantees must make sure all totals of the budget workbook, GMS, and the payment request form match before submitting to your grant manager. Okay, as it is every year, it's just a nice reminder, but progress reports are due every quarter, October 31st, January 31st, April 30th, July 31st. Progress report documents include, so every time you upload your reports into GMS, it must include your grant project summary, your progress report, and your CCC signage reviews. Progress reports need to be uploaded on time in GMS, and if progress reports are late, invoices may be held. All costs for RLC38 must be incurred before June 30th, 2025. End of cycle reports are due 60 calendar days after your grant manager reviews your final invoice. Retention is paid when the end of cycle or final report is approved by the grant manager and the program supervisor. Then your withhold retention will be processed. Please see the procedures and requirements, pages 6 through 9, for more guidance on what is eligible and what is not. And of course, you can always reach out to your grant manager. For costs to be eligible, they must be directly related to the grant project summary, must be included in the approved budget workbook. Costs are only eligible in arrears, money owed. This is a reimbursement grant. Proof of payment must be provided for costs incurred and paid. And ineligible costs are any costs not specifically included in the approved budget. and not directly related to the local Conservation Corps grant program and not directly related to the approved grant project summary. Costs that are deemed ineligible will be disallowed. Ineligible costs will be deducted from your invoice, and this includes charges for goods or services that should have been bid out but weren't, even if it's an eligible expense. Okay, so site visits will be coordinated with you by your grant manager. Recently, we sent out some guidance to further specify bid requirements. It was a few months ago now. I've listed them here, and they are in your email I sent out about bid guidance. Please read them and ask your grant manager if you have any questions. Also, I'll have this PowerPoint available, and I took everything from that email and put it in these slides, so you'll have that information here too. So if you don't have the email, don't worry, it's in here. Lastly, for bids and quotes, please remember to ensure that bids all follow the same specifications and make sure to submit original bids with dates to your grant manager in your payment request documentation. Vehicles, please place photos of vehicles and pink slips in corresponding invoice when purchasing the vehicle or vehicles. Okay, when to seek pre-approval. Changes to the grant project summary, adding or removing a line item into the budget. So a budget modification. On our new workbook, we are not tracking adjustments any longer. If you want to discuss your adjustments with your grant manager, that's fine, but we are only requiring that we keep track and that you seek approval for budget modifications, and that those are in the new budget workbook. We don't have a space for adjustments, so you can do those on your own. Purchasing capital equipment, for example, a truck, forklift, or making capital improvements. Changes to the building, 5,000 or more if it requires addition of a budget line item. Before printing or publishing new grant funded education, outreach, and marketing print or web materials or videos. To use a sole source vendor for a purchase greater than 5,000. Out of state travel, not in your approved budget. Now, normally I would switch it over to Jim right now, but since Jim is not here, you will get another meeting request for Jim's information. Do you want to skip down to like the last couple of slides, Drea? So here is all your, well, Derek, our supervisor, and all the grant manager information. I see there's a question. Let me see what the question is in the. Oh, no, nothing, just I keep losing you. So hopefully. Does anybody have any questions? Or Derek, did you want to add anything?
I don't have anything to add, Renee.
So, hi, this is Kyle from Urban San Diego.
Hi.
As far as the timing for the workbook coming out, is there an ETA on that?
Oh, after I do the training tomorrow, I'm going to send it out either tomorrow or the day after. So not long.
Great. And then as far as the retention, you know, I don't know if the delay in the agreements getting signed, is that going to affect the kind of the final reports being approved and the retention being released?
No.
Usually it's kind of, okay. So maybe
yeah,
October then, or?
Personally, I've sent out a few of mine already, or I've sent them to accounting. The only thing that we do a checklist to make sure we have everything for the cycle, and then we review your final report. Once Derek approves your final report based on us approving your final report, then we send in your retention. Then we process that. So if you're lagging, or if it's taking a little bit longer to do any final revisions to your final report, make sure you turn those in to ensure that your retention is sent and processed.
Great.
This is
Thanks,
Tony
Renee.
from Orange County. Quick
Hi, Tony.
question.
Mhm.
On the advancement you mentioned earlier, so I shouldn't put it in until we got the executed agreement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's forthcoming any day now.
I hope so. I really hope so. I promise I've been asking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I will let you have quite a bit of time back. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you.
We'll
Thanks,
see you
Renee. Thanks,
tomorrow.
Derek.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You.
All right, take
Thank
care,
you.
everyone.
Bye.